Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome. It's another coding day today. As might be apparent, let's zoom in on that. No, not that one. This one. Still have to rename that button. Hey there, BC. I have laid out some wet food for the kitties. Not visible as Ember, because Ember gets a dish off to the side, because otherwise nobody will let her get any. But I put out some little chunks of wet food for them, so they've all gathered to get a little bit of it. Yeah, Ember is on a shelf above them with her own little dish. Inevitably, Mason will notice that he can't get any food down there and will hear Ember eating, so he'll go and take the rest from her, but by then she's usually gotten her fill anyway. But yes, it is a programming day today. Going to continue work on our game. For those unfamiliar, we very, very slowly work through the coding of a game using Godot and C#. We stop frequently, we explain what we're doing, we do stuff. We stop frequently, we then explain what we're doing again. But last time, we replaced pretty much all of this whole sequence here, with a new step, a new process where we set up a decision tree and we run that until we don't get a success result. That is, we don't get a I successfully did a thing result. The decision tree itself, the expectation is that either it will get to a point where it does nothing, there is nothing further to do, or it will return a busy that says it started doing something but it's not done yet, which will break free and have us do another cycle. There are limitations to this, but for the time being, just getting this in place allowed us to smooth some things out and spot some issues, which is pretty good. Hey there, cats. Welcome, welcome. So frame rate is still a lot better. We still get some hitches in here. But still doing good on that front, which is kind of where we want to be right now. General plan for the day is to further dig into the infrastructure of our gameplay loop here, of the system loop under the gameplay, and get more of that converted over to this tree structure. I don't know yet if I'm going to consolidate it all into one big tree. That is most likely what is actually going to happen, but we'll have to see. And hello there, forgive me, but I don't know how to read the alphabet used in Russian there. It is going pretty well, cats. We are getting the expected better frame rate out of running it in Godot. That's not surprising. We aren't getting any error states. I suspect we'll get one at the end because we still haven't fixed the flaw in the shader, the local compute shader logic. We are adding increasing complexity and workload here. How are the cats? Cats are doing good. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, you can see them picking over the remnants of the wet food that was laid out. As expected, we are still getting better results than we used to, I think. This may just be wishful thinking. So we are going to return to the collision handler and some of this other physics logic, but for the time being, we're shifting to handling the update to the core loop here. Gonna let these die off. See if we get back to our maximum FPS once the mass falls away. Yep. Hiccuping a little around 119. Hello there, Shay. Welcome. Was just doing a quick preliminary review of our code here, seeing where we were last time. Doing good otherwise. It's been a pretty good day. It's going to be a coding day today, which means there's going to be a lot of chat, a lot of me probably muttering to myself or just saying what I'm doing. So feel free to ask questions or anything as we go. What am I up to nowadays? Well, we're continuing our game dev project, cats. We are on stream 184. Again, we move slowly here. Well, thanks for the follow, Shay. We don't have an actual title yet, BC. We only have a project title, which has potentially nothing to do with the actual end title. We're making a Survivors style game, so it's Nyanite Survivors is our project title. But it is very probable I won't use that because I don't like the incessant need that people have to put the pseudo genre in the name of the game. Like, stop calling your souls like something souls. Okay, so we have our physics process decision tree. It's not the best thing to name it. Maybe I'll change that, but the intent of this thing is to operate our basic loop inside of the code. We should have a method for that. Prepare decision tree. So we have a depth first navigation tree that we set up, where what we're doing is we're checking various nodes along the way in particular sequences to see what step is next in the loop here. So we start with our root node, which is a do whatever comes first. So the minute we get a result, a practical result, we will return that. So if we get a busy or a success, we'll stop there. First thing we do is if we need to start physics, we start physics. So we start our collision logic. Then if we need to finish the physics, we're going to do that. No worries there, Shay. Then lastly, we're going to go into our world step decision node here, which is currently, let's grab that. So we determine, okay, I'm going to do a world step here. Right now, we don't have the time gate built into this. And I think we should have the time gate built in here, but we need to get that in the world state. Where are you hiding? World step. World step. There we are. So right here, we're doing the accumulated delta to see if we should do a world step. So we start with nothing. We did nothing as a result of this. This is actually not a terrible place to do the accumulation, since the world state determines whether it does something. We are obfuscating the accumulation of delta. So I think that's still reasonable to do it that way. And we're currently still relying on the start step, time passed, end step, steps done. So what we want to look for are places that use these messages, because by changing this infrastructure that we have, some of these messages are no longer relevant. I know world time past is relevant. That's one that I actually want to get to addressing here. I see Key has joined us. My something is not coming through, but there you are. If I had to guess, what happened there is the watch streak did not come through on my chat aggregator. Or the text that accompanied it did not. Is not perfect, and I haven't updated it recently. Could I write my own? Yes, I could, but the Twitch side is easy. The YouTube side is a hassle. Oof. All right, so let's hunt these down here. So it should be this plus equals. And we're going to find that throughout the project. So the entity manager is looking for a start step. And currently within the start step, we do two things. We add any entities queued for we cull any entities queued for removal. This is the 184th stream, BC. Yeah, the Twitch is easy because it's an IRC stream. You just get kind of a feed of message after message, and things like the subscriptions and follows and whatnot have special codes that you can parse out. So they're not regular chat messages. You just have to know how to piece them apart. YouTube is a request-based system. So one, you have to have you have to take your authentication process and do the whole handshake song and dance to get it wired up. Then what you are doing are things like requesting all chat messages since a particular timestamp, and then piecing them apart and periodically looping on that. The process of establishing the connection and properly making the requests, while it is not like, I wouldn't call it actually difficult, it is going to have a lot of error surfaces to it. And again, that is entirely because we put it beside Twitch chat. But like in my current circumstance, there are two different streams running. So I would have to say which are the streams, which messages are from when, that kind of thing. Okay, so world start step. We have something for. Let's real quickly get our notepad open here. Pretty quickly, we are going to okay, we're back there. All right, so we have world start step. Okay, for this one, we're going to go through each entity in entities. And we're going to call them if they're out of bounds. Just heard a alert ping there, and I don't know what it was. I did not see it in time. Always concerning when you have a warning pop up from Windows. Especially nowadays. Windows is not to be trusted. Nowadays being like half a decade at least. There is a point at which your perception of the passage of time becomes increasingly distorted. Somebody showed me it was kind of a quilt or trying to think of what it would be, but a big kind of grid of game boxes. Or kind of game splashes, that vertical rectangles from the era of game boxes. And the title was Grandpa Slop. And they were all games that I remember playing when I was younger. And amongst them, one was Half-Life 1, Orange Box Half-Life 1. But alongside it, not next to it, but within the same little collage of boxes, collage is what I was thinking, was also Yellow Box Counter-Strike. And that is notable because at that time, Counter-Strike was not really a standalone game. If you got Counter-Strike, you were getting Half-Life. And if you had Half-Life, you could get a hold of Counter-Strike because it was a mod. It was Half-Life with extra rules layered over top of it. It is only, again, within like decade or so, most likely, I don't know exactly when, they made Counter-Strike a standalone game. Is it still likely built on the same engine? Yes, but it isn't a mod for Half-Life anymore, just like Team Fortress is a standalone game now, as opposed to its original incarnation, which was like a Quake mod, and then eventually Half-Life. So what that implied to me is that not only were they calling games that I remember playing when I was not, like, that I remember playing some long time ago, grandpa games, but additionally, it seems like the collection was put together by somebody who thought that Counter-Strike back then was its own thing compared to Half-Life as it is now. Don't worry about it, BC. A lot of people just lurk and listen to stuff as it happens during the coding streams. I don't expect that everybody here is a game developer or even a programmer. There's no expectation. But it is an opportunity to mutually learn about general concepts. So we call the out-of-bounds entities, and then okay. So that is the only consumer here. So part of this operation is finding out places where I over-engineered the messaging system, in no small part to facilitate some of the physics stuff. And the task that we're setting out to do is gives us an opportunity to narrow this down and make it so that we have entities whose purpose is to accomplish a function, but they themselves do not decide on exactly the order of the overall function. So the world step and exactly what happens at each point in the step is not the decision of the entity manager. Instead, we reverse it and say that the world determines when we do things to entities, but it is the entity manager that executes on that decision. Which is going to give us more control over what and when, similar to what we just did with physics. But this is an example of one of those places we have a great deal of control over in how we've implemented it, because the only place that does this, that uses this portion of the world step, is Entity Manager for these two purposes. By breaking these out into discrete pieces, I can control if and when different things happen at different times. Like, I don't need to do a entity removal at each iteration of a world step. I don't need to do a out of bound check at each iteration. I'm probably going to do the removal every time, but the out of bounds check doesn't necessarily need to be every time, which saves us one iteration over the entirety of the entity collection. I could also move this as a generic thing at the beginning of any entity and say, if you are this far away from the player, go away. But this is an open question one. We may have reached a point where we can do this one differently. Okay, so now we're going to go back and we have world start step. Let's look for world time passed. Okay, so we have world time passed is used in base inventory. This is not surprising that base inventory would have it, because base inventory uses it for the purposes of causing weapons to fire. That is another area that I've wanted to return to, in that it's kind of kludgy. All right, where else? These player state. We're just going to call it. We'll keep those names for now, because it is actually accurate to use the base term. It reminds me, I don't know where the first little dancing dinosaur is from, Shay. Reminds me of something. I know it. It reminds me of the little Google mini game one, but I know that's not quite it. But I do like how they're kind of doing the thriller dance. Okay, we have player state. We have entity, and this is one that I really want to change. Okay, so these are our 3 consumers here. So if we go to an entity, world time past, I'm going to so we relay along to the subcomponents, which are health and behaviors. So this is notable in that, just jump back over to it on world time past here. This is used for every message. So we should have a handle message. Yep. So this is where we express, let's see, you only do coding on Twitch, or is it just you're doing today? I also do it on YouTube. VODs go on YouTube as well as active streams. Yeah, we have both of them running on YouTube as well. I generally have 3 streams going at once when I'm streaming. Twitch, YouTube, and then vertical format on YouTube. Message handling is one that is a big burden for our system. We'll get there. What games do I play? It varies across the board. So a lot of streams recently with gaming have been like puzzle and detective games. A recent one was Voidling Bound. It was a nice little action-y creature collector. I want to maybe get some Monster Hunter Wilds in again in the near future. The announcement of an expansion pack to that was interesting. If Arrowhead ever sends out any of those quality of life and gameplay expansion stuff to Helldivers 2, wouldn't mind playing a bit of that again. But my tastes in game are all over the place. We had a really good bit of fun with The Root Trees Are Dead, which was a heavy investigation game. Simulated like 90s computer stuff where you would look up articles and such to figure out who people were, what their professions were, that kind of thing. Actually, I don't think I've played any Resident Evil games. Closest I think I ever came was that there was a track shooter on one of the Wii consoles that I played, I think. It's not to say I would never play them. A lot of them are on the edge of, but not quite the kind of horror that I like. As far as horror games in that vein, I played Dead Space. The Dead Space remake recently we played. That one was fun. I liked the original 3 as well, though. Okay, what does the base player state do with world time passed? Okay, this is iframes. And then we also have base inventory. What does it do? Do you mean on stream played an old console? If that's what you mean, no, I haven't done that on stream because I don't really have any of them. To some extent, it's that I played them in their era and I have left them behind. The other side is gamepad and similar kind of things aggravate my wrists something crazy. I already have to watch out for it when I'm playing certain types of PC game, but gamepad, Switch consoles, those kind of things will cause the carpal tunnel to flare up like crazy. And I really need to keep ahead of that because it hurt a lot. What's the inspiration behind the model? Well, here. I always like the opportunity to do this. Then we'll get bits so that you can see what we're talking about. But there is a bit of if you know, you know, but early on, well, lore-wise, I am the proto-nanotype, the first of a new product line by Catbot Corporation, previously known for its Catbot domestic robots. Nanotypes are the next in that line, meant to be more capable and more intelligent. Being the first in the line, and being the most capable model, since I am not the mass production model, I was consensually and safely and non-violently given control of the factory and production of all future models. And any terms like armed insurrection or bunker or militarization or earthquakes, all of those are fake news and definitely shouldn't be believed and potentially actionable. As for inspiration for the model, it is a bit of a if you know, you know. Early on in streaming, one of the things we did a lot of was Noida. And this model and the prior model were derived from the modification that I made for Noida and some of the imagery, and even the lore for this is derived from that. The concepts in the game and the visuals in the game are also heavily inspired both by gameplay of Noida, but also the imagery that we used. Yes, cats, canonically, I am 4 feet tall, 120 centimeters. A friend of the stream, Okami Sky, who I have done collaborations with, she is canonically 6'3". So it is occasionally fun to put our models at height accurate next to each other. Hey there, Captain Horse. we can still see that there are weaknesses in our wall detection, but that's unlikely to be an actual issue during gameplay, and is just a matter of tweaking some variables. But performance is good. It's better running in Godot, but that is not a surprise because when you run through C#, you have this debugging layer relaying through the Godot layer. So you have an extra layer of intermediate. All right. So that's the spawners. So these are the only things that act as far as world time passed. Panels, I actually have them. I just haven't gotten around to it. There's a thing planned. Let's put it that way. We have everything. I just need to use the things. This over. So now we need, it's our next step. World end step, okay. So we're looking for event name plus equals because that's what things will do to subscribe to / hook into that message. Bit of a hiccup there. Okay, so we have entity on world end step. And entity does what? Set position animation. Okay. Well, the cat that was on camera, and that still is, top center for widescreen is Ember, the littlest and second oldest. Top left is Sky up in the cat tree. Then on the left, on the bed, we have Mason in the top right on the comforter, and then Sammy on the pillow in the lower right. Not currently visible. We don't have Sherbet visible. Just a moment here. Then let's see. Sherbet and Molly are not visible. Molly is accounted for. She is below my feet. Okay, so the entity does that. So relay to subcomponents is largely health and behaviors. I believe in that order. This is another place that we need to look at. I believe I just mentioned this. But the relay to behaviors is really expensive. That is where a bulk of our time gets spent, aside from collision detection. And collision detection, we have a plausible control on it. Yes, Molly is then a new cat from your memory. She is very friendly and very roly poly. She doesn't really she'll take any other cat's place, and largely, wherever she wants to lay down, she just lays down. So I always have to watch out that she's not sitting right next to the wheels of a chair, or that she doesn't flop down on your feet and knock you over when you are trying to walk by her. But she is very friendly. Okay, what else is using world end step? Only entity. Okay. Then world steps done. Shader Collision Manager uses that. Okay, and that is... This is probably interfering with what we're doing. Oh, yeah. Okay. Are we... We're still sending that, too. Okay, well, that has thrown off our... All right, let's alter this. Oh, that's right. You may have... your last streams may have been when I was still playing a little more... let's call it a little more energetic or aggressive music. I've since pivoted and gone for the calmer stuff, even for the very active games. Steps done. Are we still firing game start step? We no longer fire game start step. So let's go into... All right, let's change how we're breaking that off. So instead, on world steps done... No, we should be able to do that. Invoke physics start should be what we're doing. So let's look at our decision tree. Start physics. That's going to be shader collision manager. Start collision calculation. And then finish physics is what we want. That is never happening. That's a problem. Okay. Well, as is tradition, the thing that I was hoping to do isn't going to happen because the thing that I thought was working isn't working at all. Ha. We're not even getting into that one. Up in. We're in execute on a group decision node, which should be by default. By default, should execute happens. This is a priority decision node type. Step into should execute, it's going to return true by default. So we're going to go in and we're going to run all of the children on this node. And since this is a priority node, we're going to do the first thing that we encounter until we get something other than nothing, or until we run out of nodes to execute. So child nodes, we have 3 of them. Should we start physics? Should we finish physics? And then do world step stuff. So here's our... This will be our start physics, which has... Should we start physics? Which has... Wait. It doesn't make sense. Where are you at? Prepare tree. Okay. Finish physics decision node. When it runs. Okay. And then we have a ready to start and ready to finish that extend concurrent nodes. A concurrent will run through all of them unless we get... I'm sorry, it will execute all of them, but it will report based on the most urgent thing. So if there's a failure, it reports failure. If there's working, it reports working, amongst all of the children. Okay, so these are concurrent nodes. and we're going to check if we're ready to start, ready to finish. Okay. And we set, okay, so ready to finish has a child of finish, and ready to start has a child of start. This should be correct. So we pop in, and the first node is the ready to start. Yeah, ready to start. So we go in, and we're going to run through all 3 of the children. And as we saw before, first what we're going to say is it ready to start, ready to finish, and then do world steps. This is a priority node, so as soon as one of them does something, we stop. So result starts as nothing. If anything other than nothing comes back from result, we stop iterating over the children. So we step in. This is another group decision node. We're going to call into should execute. And because this is a ready to start physics decision node, we're going to go in and we're going to say, are we ready to start physics? So we aren't computing, so that would be true, but world state has not changed yet. So we're going to put our block there. So our result that is going to bubble up is we did nothing. So we loop back around again, and now we're going to get our next child, which is going to be, are we ready to finish? Do we have physics results that we're done with? So we pop in. This is our ready to finish decision node, which will we hop in here, and are we ready to finish physics is what we're checking. And that is, are we actively computing? Thanks for swinging through, cats. Have a good night. So we get here, we are not computing, so we are not ready to finish physics. So we're not going to continue in to the children of this node, which would be execute, finish the physics. So we have one child node left, which is do a world step. Do I play Minecraft? I have played Minecraft. Base Minecraft, I'm not thrilled with. There's a limit of how much that I do in sandbox games, and I particularly don't like sandbox games with a scarcity economy. Like the idea of things constantly breaking or running out of resources and needing to set up what I'm going to say is artificial spawns. A lot of the core mechanics of a long-term Minecraft server are subversions of the system. The idea of knowing how to set up a mob spawn, like the mechanisms for doing it efficiently and automatically, those are things that are meta knowledge. Like you have to know how at a fundamental level the game works in order to make those work properly. And I'm not really interested in having to do all of that song and dance to play the way I would like. So nothing. We are going to get our world state object, and we're going to go in and we're going to do a world step. Have we accumulated enough delta yet? Our accumulated delta is not ready yet. We're going to put a break in here to see if we can reach that. Oh. This is a problem. Is physics... Okay, no. Physics done starts true. But physics done should never be altered here. We shouldn't be asking about physics done. That is outside of our purview. All of this says is if we're not paused, we're going to accumulate the delta. So we're going to iterate over the child nodes here. We are going to have, that's a true and a false, so we've got a false here, we're not going to start. There's a false here, we're not going to finish physics. Wait, what? Oh. We haven't started, and world state hasn't fired yet. This delta should be enough. Yes. So by this stage, we have accumulated enough delta for a step. So now we iterate over each of the world steps here. So at this point, we should have a world steps. BC, I have played all of the Mario games up through, I'm going to say Galaxy. Triggered the world state through here. That should have been a success. That should be a success. Because we actually did something. We will be out of things to do, but it did something. Okay, world state did not change. And we get rid of you. And we get rid of you. Not computing, world step hasn't changed. computing yet. Okay, so now world state should have changed. True. We're not yet computing, so we're gonna update physics here. Not functioning. Really only interested in finish physics happening. Computing, and at the end of it, we're going to set computing equal to false. So for every collision that happens, we'll hit that point. We clearly had loose ends. We clearly had some loose ends. No collisions are being recorded. Okay. We should be able to send the messages back. Hello there, Vadim. Beverage. Do we even get this far? Oh, something has gone wrong with collision detection. Nope, not even firing that. Okay. There are all the breakpoints. Go over to the Godot side and run it. Let's see if there's an error that shows up on the Godot end. Nothing. We're still firing all of the step messages. Are we maybe not getting our entity positioning updated properly? Are starting the calculations, and we are finishing the calculations. So that's a start, and that's a finish. Hello, Ryzen. Well, welcome back then. Just noticed, are you a Shin Megami series fan? Or is it a coincidence that you have a secondary or surname or a second part of your name that is Edgedyne? That scans. Sync. We get debug values, we get collision results. The Shin Megami games are all over the place as far as exactly how they play. So the Persona variant has its thing. The mainline Shin Megami Tensei has its thing. There was actually a period where Atlas tried to get into the Pokemon trend. So around when Pokemon and Digimon were really the big thing, there was actually one where you had... It looked like Pokemon, but there were a lot more pentagrams. That did not go over well, apparently. No, that was later. Well, it might actually be. I can't remember what they called it originally. This was like Game Boy Color era. Or even like just Game Boy era. Because I know there was a DS era one that was like a tactics game that I think was... I think that one was called Devil Summoner. In any event, they've made a lot of stuff. Why is physics not doing? Ah, okay, yeah. Devil Survivor was the DS Tactics one. I didn't mind that one. Well, I didn't mind that one in general. The thing that took me out of that game entirely is that there was a given fight where narratively you reach a moment where you determine, hey there, Kinoma, you got to a point where there was an enemy that could not be hurt by traditional means. The only way to hurt him was with like a sprig of mistletoe, like whacking him with the sprig of mistletoe. But the only one that was allowed to do it was the main character, and it was a physical attack, which had a particular stat requirement, and up until that point, you had full control over how to level your character, which might have included not giving them high physical attack. And if you had not done that and made them tanky to boot, that was a dead end. That was a soft lock. You could not beat that guy. And at that point, I called shenanigans and did not wish to play any longer. Why is collision not due? Like, thematically, the idea that there is a creature that has, like, a single supernatural weakness. Cool. Like, really cool. But I should have been able to give the magic stick to, say, one of the physical attackers that I'd cultivated for the purposes of being a physical attacker. As opposed to, here, wizard, here's a sword, go up there and tank for us. Beverage. So it is possible that we're just not sending updated data. So perhaps we're not sending updated data. Let's look at that as a possibility. This is the entity position buffer, which is something that I started doing but won't work past this point. It is possible that I have broken that, but I wouldn't think so, but we know how that goes. On physics start, it does its buffer update, and we have removed that. We will force this. This whole thing needs to be ripped out anyway. So the reason that this thing existed at all was that I had hopes to share this buffer between multiple rendering devices, but wasn't paying attention to the fact that buffers are rendering device dependent. That is, a given rendering device for the purposes of a compute shader is going to do one thing at a time. You make that rendering device, you set up buffers, you have it do its thing. So I can't share them. This is Windows at the moment, stock. Perhaps someday, given the rate things are going, this will be Linux, but for now is Windows. this, move this over here, and for safety's sake, put you here. And then we go into our shader here. This is entity position buffer. Entity position buffer is equal to this. We're making a survivor style game using C# and Godot. It is not going to like this with almost certainty, but ideally it will just whine about it, but it will still work. Now. There we go. Okay, we be colliding again. So the reason that that was happening is that this was dependent on messaging steps that were no longer happening. And we had to add that back in. Again, this thing is going away in the near future. Are you asking why I'm using an avatar or something else? I can't parse that. Run this again. We should be getting a complaint about using buffer update during physics. But I'm not, so I guess that's okay. It is on theme for the channel and because I like it. Those are generally the reasons. And I mean, in lieu of a human face cam, you get kitty cats. And that's better. Let's see, Sherbet and Ember and Sky and Mason and Sammy and Molly is still under my feet. All kitties are accounted for. 5 are visible. Okay, at 463 things, we are still operating fine. $70. Let's do some more. Still well over 60 at 850, approaching 900. 1,000, we're still fine. This is way too many for us to have an accurate test, but let's triple it again. Over 1,000, we breach the 60 mark. Somewhere over 1,000, but 1,000 is definitely within our range of acceptable. You are unlikely to get the entire screen, like the entirety of the screen filled with enemies. And that's about where we need to be to exceed 1,000 easily. You would need one enemy filling every possible spot. So for every 32 pixels, you would have an enemy. And each of those enemies would have a bullet aimed at it, would be exceeding 1,000. Which is improbable, but possible. And even then, it keeps us above 30 to have about 2,600. So I think we're in good shape there. Okay, so we need to... buffer. Entity position buffer is largely an anachronism at this point. What we need to do is set that up independently. How to do that cleanly, though? I think we can still do this. Like, the entity position buffer... The idea of retrieving the buffer, I think, is still viable. But not quite how we're thinking about it here. So we want to get a buffer. And what we should do is give it a rendering device. Is given this rendering device, give me the entity position buffer. And the entity position buffer... or it will give me an entity position buffer. So we would have a get it and release it. This never properly releases the entity position buffer either. This is a ticking time bomb. There will be a resource identifier that is either dangling loose or gets freed when it's needed later. Same here with rendering device. We would want to have some way of getting a particular one. So I think we can do something to wrap this up with cleaner methods of generating stuff, but because a lot of this stuff is relatively what do I say, relatively straightforward. Like, we're not trying to do anything tricky with this. This one in particular is keeping track of entity positions by loading them into a data span. So this index, this value thing. Yep. So we have an array of entity positions, and whenever we update that particular entity, we go in and say, okay, load this span of data with this item here. So we take a bit array, we treat it as a span or a span of entity position data, and then we update it accordingly. So what this does is it creates this it creates this bit field essentially, or this we have a dictionary that we're maintaining, and we of where the entities are, and we render that into a byte array. The byte array is the important part. We feed that into the buffer whenever we need to. So we could change this so that in lieu of storing off a buffer, which does not help us with anything, same with the rendering device, it doesn't help us to store that off. What this does is say there is a central source of truth. If you want a byte array that is the entity positions, as far as the buffers are concerned, you can make those and you can keep them yourself. But if you want to get the data, you can go to here because it is tracking that. So this still has utility, but we need to change how we interact with it. Yes. Okay, quick break. I will be right back in a moment. Folks, if you like what you're seeing and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe, comment. All that stuff helps the channel grow. Will help you see more of it. Ah. My poor bones. We return. Let's see. So again, the position data is fine. We want to be able to get a buffer. Ideally, we could update the buffer. That we don't have to release it if we don't want to, essentially. Okay, so let's... We shouldn't be doing either of these things. Nothing in the physics events. So we're gonna pull the physics done. Then so we're going to have an update buffer, and we want a rendering device and sending a shader buffer, and a shader buffer has get data and a buffer RID to it. I think these are... as a rendering device, and currently we create it there. For the time being, we're going to leave that. Ideally, we'll get to this in a moment. Okay, so in here we have rendering device, and ID buffer. So this should break one thing. Is here. Which we will not do for this. So what this is going to do is say, with this rendering device and this buffer. So rendering device, update this buffer with the data that you contain. Then right now, buffer is a publicly exposed get. Let's make explicitly a create buffer. Buffer. Rendering device. Position buffer. And by default, it's already going to have been created here. So we're no longer getting a local rendering device or calling in to create the buffer. Right. Okay. Now this should break in a couple of places. Rendering device. And we want our buffer there. So we're going to call create buffer on this. This does create the need to have the buffer stored off. So we have our collider buffer. Which we could just create up here. Here is equal to this. So this creates a buffer for us. Then when we are purging this, update lighter buffer isn't the best name for it, but let's okay, so this gives us a good way to create a buffer for it. Position buffer. Yep. This one I know is definitely not used. It's that way on purpose. It is unfortunately that way on purpose. Does it work or do we crash? That is not great. All right, that implies to me that we're generating errors left and right. Yep. Case avoidance flow generator at dispatch. Okay. Okay. In doing this, we have broken the avoidance flow generator, which is the wall collision part. Rams, we've got all that. Let's add dispatch during start collision. Our entity position buffer. Okay. For this, we need to create a buffer just like with the other one. Active RID position buffer. And then in here, we get our rendering device. This is already a problem because we have the same rendering device. So there is a possibility that this is going wrong. But get our shader here. We're setting up our area buffer. Is equal to dispatch. So one thing that we'd be able to do is make it so that we're not creating these buffers and deleting them as much. But I think this is the performance hit that we took was because of the error that we had in here. Remove that. That will cause an error elsewhere. We go up to here. To that. Buffer is equal to position buffer dot create buffer with rendering device. So then we need to take position buffer down to here. And we're going to rename. Oh, we're going to put that there. Okay, no explosions there. Collisions have broken down again. If shader collision manager, there's a point at which we kick off the avoidance flow. So nothing is colliding any longer. So how is... confounding. I mean, as is tradition, we thought something was working, but then on closer inspection, it's actually super not working. We are getting hitches more often. Never reaching this point. Are we reaching finish physics here? We are reaching that. We are reaching this. Get the rendering device. Oh. Is it entity position buffer, services, resolve, entity position buffer. Rendering device and position buffer. Just that. Okay. So we watch intently to see. Oh, okay. Yep, there we go. So this updating of the buffer is something that we want to mitigate as much as possible. But there isn't really the greatest way to do that. Entity position buffer. Entity position buffer is... So update the buffer, make use of the buffer. So we can definitely see that there is an FPS cost to the adjustments we've been making of about 1 or 2 under our cap. So I don't know that I like currently the avoidance shader isn't doing anything because they're clumping like they are. And we can still see they're able to get through if things happen just so. But let's get... Still not exactly where we want it to be. We need to make sure that the entity position buffer is updated as cleanly as possible, that all of the buffer... We should be able to handle that more cleanly. So what we could do is have each buffer associated with a rendering device, and whenever we say update this buffer, we know which rendering device it is associated with and can just update it, which means we could have a update the buffers, and when it wants to do that, it iterates over them. I don't know that we directly need to, it's just that this is a repetitious step. Like, we pretty much need to know this is the sequence where we're saying update this buffer with the latest data and then use it. I don't think that's terribly concerning, though. Okay. Check a couple of things here. Push some buttons real quick. I think we're going to wrap up a little bit early for the night. What we probably have to do for next time is look at our management of rendering devices and associated buffers so that we can get some of this out of the individual handling that we've got, because there are known things we need to do. Like, we need to free all of the RIDs for the different buffers and pipelines and whatnot that we have created. Buffers, I don't think we need to actually free in the same way. But to my understanding, we should be clearing them. And I'm not. Let's look at our collision manager here. So we create the buffers. So here we're freeing the buffers. What I would like to be able to do is at some point we say, okay, I am creating a compute shader handler. I want to be able to create the rendering device, and any buffers that I create can live with it and update them that way. So I know I have this shader associated with it. I have these buffers associated with it. When I am done, get rid of them. I don't need to know particularly which one. Once I've created it, it's just part of that list. And I can remove it by handing it back to it and say, get rid of this one right now. But I think this is an opportunity for us to go through and say, this one's rendering device is this. And these are its buffers, these are its uniforms, these are its pipelines. So that we have a cleaner way to mess with that. It's not so much a... Like, it could be a service, but it could also just be a wrapper object that we keep inside of it, that this is a like a compute shader manager or something like that. And we'll deal with it accordingly. But that's probably what we'll be doing next time. So, buttons. All right, folks. I hope you had a good time with us tonight. We didn't do a lot, but that was because we found a bug and we had to fix it. This is kind of the way of things. We'll be picking this up again probably early next week. We're still going to be trying to do this at least once to twice a week and keep moving with it. Ideally tomorrow, but no guarantees given the way the schedule has unfolded. But ideally tomorrow we'll have another gaming stream. Deciding whether it's going to be more of that Voidling bound. The nature of that one is pretty grindy. As far as what we're doing, a lot of go into the same level and loop and loop and loop, and I don't mind that as like a play it for abnegation purposes kind of feeling, but it might not be as entertaining to watch. We'll see what I decide though. Otherwise, maybe something like Monster Hunter or maybe even Vampire Survivors. They do have some new content. Maybe that. We'll see ultimately, though. Again, if you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe, comment. All of that stuff helps the channel grow. So I'd appreciate it if you press those buttons. And with all of that, I hope the rest of your day is good. And I'll see you next time.